Tony, I'm gonna call the honorary dudette, just because Tony the dudette Hoong. I've actually, sat in on a couple of his. He's had a bunch of webinars and things like that with SARE, and he was extremely helpful because, well, I'm in the deferred tax submittal club. And so I just submitted my taxes this week, but during tax season, Tony was super helpful in Tony and his team were really helpful in submitting tidbits and giving us how to's on, like what you should be doing in order to get most money for, your real estate investment and how you could be saving if you're, a high earner. So I actually took a lot from that. And so I was really excited to have Tony on here. And after listening to everything, which is, this really fun, super easy conversation between you three, I think like one of my favorite parts was Tony talking about his business, his family influences. And there's also a bunch of other things in there too. And like his opinion on Discord groups and like crafting the right mindset and like, should you start an OnlyFans real estate business? It was just funny and hilarious. So really excited for the pod squatters to be listening to this episode, and hopefully you'll be catching me on other episodes in the very short near future.
Pod squatters, is that a new term we're using now, Anita? Pod squatters?
I'm feeling it out. I'm experimenting with it.
Pod squatters. Yeah, because they're called pod squatters because they don't own real estate yet, but they're just listening to the podcast, so they're pod squatters.
Yeah, they squat on the pod until they actually get some real estate. That's what.
Funny. So how do you know Tony?
He's like a CPA. He's funny, charming, handsome. I don't know if he's single or not.
That should be one of our leading questions, like as part of the onboarding. It's like, are you married or single? Would you like to use the podcast to find a partner?
Yeah, this is peak Asian. We give them we add them. Subtle Asian dating. It's like, hey, he's 6'1". He's a qualified real estate professional.
That's good.
Tony was funny. I feel like this podcast would be nice if we just had people who are entertaining to talk to. It doesn't have to be someone who's had like 1 million units, because that's what every other podcast is, right? It's like, here's a person who has 1,000 units, and then they're like, all right, so IRR was, this, and my mom invested in my deals, and now it's, I'm a multi-bajillionaire. Like, that's every story on every podcast. And then sometimes it's just nice to talk and have conversations with real estate people who are interesting, but then be like, hey, here's what do you do? Like, what makes you interesting? I think Tony really fits that vibe.
Question for you, and maybe this might be problematic, but it's 7:30. We can ask fun questions. What kind of Asian are you, Tony?
Oh, I'm Chinese. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Chinese. What region? We get really specific. What region?
Oh, wow. What region? Holy cow.
Downtown China.
Chinatown. Yeah. My mom's from she's like from a village near Guangzhou, and then my dad's like a border kid from like Vietnam, China. So that's where we're from.
That's the mix. Yeah, because it's so interesting, because Nelson and I were talking about different regions, and it's interesting how it kind of like in a microcosm informs the way that they think we should be raised in America, right? Like, I feel like everyone's experience is very similar, but I think procedurally there's some variations there.
Oh yeah. How so? Do you guys have like from a north region, or like a different central region, like different aspects of it?
I think there's like it really depends on also like how old your parents were when they came to America too, right? That also like kind of informs how you grew up. Like, are your parents more Americanized? Are they more Asian? So what I'm curious to know, because Nelson and I had talked about his upbringing, and his family is, like super Chinese, right? And then you're the more Americanized one, Nelson, right? Is that safe to say you're like the super Americanized one? So, Tony, what about you? Do your parents like speak English? Like, did you have to grow up like translating for people? Because I feel like that like bleeds into like our work ethic a little bit. And
yeah, no, I'd say what on that side, my dad's English is like non-existent. Like, it's like there to like kind of like a full conversation's not gonna happen with him. Like, he'll kind of like stumble his way through. My mom's okay, but she's like shy. So like my whole life, and still to this day, I'm like their like messenger. So it's just like, yeah, it's their English is on that side. They just know how to work. That's kind of like their thing. That's like, cool, show up at the restaurant and just open doors and serve food. That's kind of like, where they sit at. But yeah, no, it'd be a little bit different because one of their friends, they were immigrants also, but then his English was a little bit better. And then this dude went wild on real estate. Like I remember when I was like 19, he had like maybe like 40 or 45 doors. And I was like, whoa, that's just because he like knew how to transact and like they would make equal money. And he kept on telling my dad, like, you got to invest, you got to invest. But then I think he got like tangled up in the stock market, whole nother conversation. And I was just like, man. So like one dude went towards real estate, and one dude went towards stocks. Obviously the dude in real estate, he's a lot better off than my pops now. But yeah, no, for sure. I think language and just education would have played a big difference in their outcomes. Because when I first started doing their taxes too, it's just like, yo, where's the retirement account? So like they hadn't done. And I'm like, dude, what kind of like crap CPA were they using? And then I'm just like, oh, like Farmtown CPA, like probably doing this crap by paper, which I did learn someone in town was doing things by paper still to this day, to 2022. I was like, oh my God. So it's just unfortunate. And then it's a lot of reasons like what I do is just like not have that happen to someone else. Cause it's like, you're sitting there, not sitting, you're like on your feet for 12 hours a day. Like you could have really utilized your money. Cause like, give or take, most restaurants do, fair at least, you hope. And they have the means to go buy real estate. It's just like, do you know the right people to execute that? So yeah, that's what I think on where their stance is at, from their education to their English levels to their self-sufficiencies. Like I think every Monday they go up to the cities to work. They're like 3 hours away from their rentals, and then I always get calls on Monday like, hey, can you call Centerpoint Energy to do the maintenance plan? And I'm just like, I just go online and click the buttons. I don't actually call them, but even that they can't manage, like internet. It's it makes like more difficult for them.
Yeah. That's so interesting because I feel like a lot of our families, because I think we're all first generation, right? All three of us, we were all born here, right? Our parents kind of immigrated over from China, and then basically put in the sweat equity, like the sweat equity means like go working those long tedious hours so that their kids can be like, I'm retired by 30, 40, 35. I want to do work anymore. How can I make my money work for me? And they're just be like, dude, just grind it out. And we're just like, we saw you do it. I'm not that into it. And we're just like, what's wrong with you? These lazy American kids. But it's I feel like that kind of like is I mean, how do your parents feel about what you're doing now with the investor? Are they like super supportive of it, or are they like, that's super risky? I mean, I feel like everything that you've told me about your mom saying like, just take all the business that you can get, like regardless of whether you're like mentally fatigued from taking on like everyone's kind of like emotional burdens. Like to your point, I didn't like, this is so funny that you're saying like being a CPA is like therapy, because I almost feel like being a real estate agent is therapy too. It's just kind of like, right?
Yeah, everyone needs someone to talk to.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's different on that side. It's just, well, yeah, the mental side of things. It's like, do your guys' parents believe in like mental health, mental illnesses, or no?
My mom's shifted over towards it in the last like 3 or 4 years. So
okay.
Same. Do you guys go to therapy? Any of you? As a personal question, I'll volunteer. I go to therapy. Do you guys? No.
No, I thought about it, but then like never executed on it. I'm like,
it's a Western thing, like, but I think that's it's super helpful. Like, I think it's cleaned up a lot of just this like kind of weird thinking that comes from like the baggage of growing up from immigrant parents and adjusting it in the context of like growing up westernized. Like I almost feel like sometimes things that you see your westernized friends doing doesn't add up with the values that you were like brought up with, and then you're kind of like conflicted. Has that ever happened to you guys, and how does it inform like how you go about planning your future and the life that you want to build for yourself?
Oh yeah,
I think that heavy. It's very heavy.
Yeah, I think it's needed to change it. But I think it's one of those items that's like, okay, you should do it, but it's just not happening. I just don't know why, but it's just a time or a commitment perspective. Like it's just, I don't know. That's a really good question. Sit there and think like, why don't we change the way that we operate? I think a lot of times too is just like the pressure from them, like, wait, we did it like this, why don't you just do it? Yeah, just what not what's it? Don't fix
what's not broken. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a big thing for them. It's like, oh, well, I can see what they mean, but at the same time, like, no, it's a different world now. You got some choices to do.
Yeah. It's funny how they're like, hey, don't fix what's not broken, but they will never admit if anything's broken either. So right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's so true. Yeah. There's a lot of like great lessons to be learned from like OG Asians, but at the same time, like, I think there's some practices that can be changed too. Yeah. I think the big thing was like always, what was it? The abundancy style. Like I think growing up wise, like it was like things were not abundant, right? So it's just like my pops would just do everything himself, my mom do everything themselves. And I'm just like,
I mean, you carry that mindset with you from like, farmland in China, because if you're not worried about scarcity, then you die. Like there's like a different stakes. Here it's like, oh no, I have to go back to renting with my parents. Like that's our downside. or like, it's just like there's like a totally different limit. Or worst case, honestly, it's like, oh no, I have to be homeless in the United States, which obviously isn't great, but compare that to being in 1970s China, like where you literally were on the verge of starving to death every single day. But it wasn't just you, by the way, it was like the whole town. So like the whole town is like is eating tree bark just to survive, which is a story that my grandparents told me. That is why you can't have an abundance mindset, is because you're so focused on scarcity. Why? Because if you mess up on scarcity, you die. That's also why negative news travels faster, right? You don't want to lose money. Like that's like the same sort of thing that appeals to people more as a result.
Like appeals because it's everyone's shared dysfunction a little bit. Like anybody who's had family that's gone through like wartime, that trauma is like inherited because they take those lessons that they took to survive. Just like it's interesting, like reframing, like, oh, we're safe now. It's more stable now. We can drop some of those like survival habits, like ways of thinking that were like limiting us. And I think that's why a lot of people stick it out with the W-2s, and they're scared to quit, because it's like a more, we're not working on a farm. It's like a white collar farm now, but we're like, just like, what if I lose like if someone loses their job, they're like kind of scared shitless, like they're going to starve and eat bark again. Like it's that same like switch that goes off in your brain. But even though like it's not as dangerous, we still perceive it on a very primal level of, oh, it's not safe. And that's why people don't want to, pull the trigger and take these risks with their money and make their money work for them. They're not thinking about it, I guess, in the right way because of trauma. Anyway, that's heavy.
But it's so good.
And that's the podcast.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, bang.
I was talking to Tiffany about the mindset thing, where if you craft your environment, it's a lot easier to just do better, right? If you don't want to get fat, you want to be fit, throw out your snacks, right? You don't want to spend mental brain power fighting to make the right decision all the time, right? So if you just remove yourself from that environment that is leading you to make those bad decisions, that's the easiest way to, put yourself in the direction of what you actually want to do, right? So either surround yourself with other entrepreneurs doing real estate, CPAing work, buying, Airbnbs,
moving away from crypto. And those
yeah,
basically look at how your crypto friends have been doing. Like
right?
Exactly. You gotta find the right crowd. Yeah, it's always like
disciplined. They're just very, very disciplined. And I think that's a big investing because you were talking about, mindset, right? That's a big thing for you too. And I think, being someone who looks at the books all the time, when people are very disciplined or undisciplined with their money and their spending. So maybe you can at a glance, like, look at someone's taxes and be like, they are just not cut out for investing, or this person's just living their best life and just doesn't care.
That's what Tony's thinking when he's looking at my tax returns right now.
Yeah, I was just like, oh wow, Nelson makes a lot, but spends more. I need to hang out with this guy. Those are the people you want to hang out with. Yeah.
It's called reinvesting. I'm investing in tables at nightclubs, guys. That's that.
Exactly.
A $4,000 table at a nightclub, that's a true relationship that you're building with somebody. You know, when you're yelling
across
the table from the nightclub.
Funny too, on the tax return side, it's you get so much data. Like you probably would nerd out over this, Nelson. Like, all right, where's this guy buying his units? You know, where's this person putting their crypto? Like, it's like I see it all, and then I'm like, what should I be doing? And then like, for sure, don't do options trading. Like, I think in the last 2 years, I saw one person come up. Everyone just lost. Like, like I don't know, that those Instagram groups are pretty like good at advertising. I give them that. Like they're like, oh yeah, just follow join the Discord for X amount of dollars per month, and then you'll make money. And then I think everyone follows that or something, and it just looks like complete doo-doo. I'm like, dude, you owed a lot of money. Like just I always brace myself, like, don't shoot the messenger, but you owe like 5 figures in tax, bro. Like, but it was cool though. I landed a client who runs the groups, and that makes so much cash. I'm like, wow.
Because he's selling the tips, because that's his insurance. He's like, well, I'm gonna lose giving these tips, but there's all these subscribers.
Yeah.
I
was like, that's smart. You're you're not eating your own supply.
Last year, I met a lot of options traders. And this year, they're like, how do I get started in real estate? So that was, I starting to turn a bit.
It's not, I mean, no one really understands taxes taxes always like, we always get the butt end of everything. It's like reactive. Not no one, but 90% of the population is not proactive on their taxes. And it's an education thing. CPAs suck at communicating that. I'm trying to like change the message, but at the same time, everyone's like, you're too expensive. I'm like, all right, I'm just trying to help. Like, nothing I can do.
They're like, hold on, my Discord person told me this. Why are you charging me taxes for this? How dare you, Tony?
Yeah, and those Discord groups, and then the people who run it too. I mean, their flex game is good too. So like, I actually I like bought one just to like see what's all going on, just to understand it more from a tax perspective. And I can see why people like buy into it. These guys are like flexing on like their screenshots of like the big win for the day. And then their bad chops, they'll like admit it. But then they're like flexing with like, oh, the clubs, right? With the $4,000 bottles, right? And like the Lambos. And I'm like, oh my God, people like, I get the marketing. I'm like, well played. You're a really good marketer. Like you got, give them kudos. They're really good marketers. To the extent that their play options are that good, I don't know. But based off the results, I'm like, I can't be that good. But successful businesses, I think some people just don't. Some people they're trading on emotion too. So
yeah, that's I like that one, because trading on emotions, that's a very highly charged thing in real estate as well, right? Like people make bad bets. Maybe Nelson, you can add to this too. Like, have either of you ever made like an emotional purchase and it was kind of like, I think we talked about this yesterday, like compounding, like you made a mistake and you're just doubling down on that mistake because you're just like, I'm so far down this way. And so I guess, has that ever happened to either of you guys that you feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah, my first flip tanked. It just stayed on market for too long. And it wasn't much of an emotional buy as much as it was an emotional trust that we could sell it at a higher comp. According to the agent. And so it stalled in the market because we priced it too high, and then we just got no offers because it just came onto the market too heavily, right? So I think that was something that set me back, was an emotional trust in one aspect of it, but it was a really important aspect, right? Because I actually had a target number that I thought I was going to make, but then they were like, no, just put 20 grand more, and I was like, I'm already at the high end, like this was a lot higher than like I think I can make this for. So that was my emotional choice. What about you, Tony?
Nothing that crazy, but no, I know on the renter side, I remember like when I was first like getting into just like managing those rentals for my parents, and then like my pops would always just be like, just get someone in, and then I'm like, you sure? I think we should do like like all the background checks and like call up the employers and the former landlords, and I don't know, something that you just kept on pushing me. I was like, oh, fine, I just want to get them off my back. I was just like, all right, I'll just get this thing rented, so the income would come. So I think it happened like 3 or 4 times already where I'll just like put someone in, and next thing you know, like rent doesn't come. So that was just kind of more so just trying to like telling the pops to like get off my back, and then but didn't actually do like the verification part of this, right? It's like, yeah, that person's bad.
That's a classic Asian kid who's been forced into labor move. Just do a bad enough job that they stop making you do the job. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
It's weaponized incompetence. That's a new word for it. Weaponized incompetence.
Oh, that's a new one. I've never heard of that, but it's like I really like that.
Yeah, it's actually a buzzword that's floating around now. It's a lot of wives are using it to describe their husbands, like not knowing how to fold laundry. I don't know how to load the dishwasher. And then the wife's like, forget it, I'll do it. But then they're catching on that they're just pretending that they're bad at it. So they don't have to do it anymore. It's weaponized incompetence. So now you guys know you can't do that anymore. Yeah. Oh, speaking of Tony, he's gonna be at SARECon. But what's funny is Tony messaged me a few weeks ago asking me, Nelson, and Tony are in a group chat, and he asked us, hey, I added you to it, Anita. Right? Did I add you to it? Okay, I was like hesitant to add you to it because I made a joke and I was like, oh man, if Anita sees this joke, she might get mad at me. Because
what happened?
All right. So the risky joke that I put in there was like, oh yeah, Anita and I booked a room. Anita booked it, but she booked 1 king bed because she's gay for me. I was like, Anita, you sure there's no two queen beds? She's like, nope. I was like, all right.
I thought it'd be a lot worse than that. It was not. I was like holding on to my dear life about what this joke was gonna be.